Welcome to CHE 142, Chemical Engineering Thermodynamics 1. My name is Maria Victoria Sumagang. I'm your instructor for this lecture. This is the first lecture which is on the scope of thermodynamics. I would like to acknowledge Associate Professor Rowena B. Carpio as the author of the slides, of course, based on our main reference, which is Smith and Van Ness. For our learning objectives, first we will understand the historical development of thermodynamics. We will define the first law of thermodynamics as the principle of energy conservation and introduce the second law of thermodynamics and its significance, which is based on the concept of entropy. We will distinguish between the macroscopic thermodynamic systems and microscopic descriptions of matter, and lastly, recognize real-world examples where thermodynamics is used to predict and analyze system behavior, such as power generation, chemical reactions, and biological processes. We move on to the historical development of thermodynamics. The science of thermodynamics was first developed in the 19th century, which is the Industrial Revolution. And as you can imagine, during that time, there was a very great need for energy or power generation to drive the Industrial Revolution. So it was the time when the steam engines were invented. And therefore, they need to um, study the steam engines. Of course, they wanted to increase the efficiency, meaning more bang for buck. So for every input that uh, they uh, they input in the system, so they want more output or more energy, and that's where uh, first the science of thermodynamics was first born. So thermodynamics denotes power generated from heat, and therefore the study of steam engines led to the formulation of the first and second law of thermodynamics. But what is thermodynamics? The definition, well, it's the science that deals with energy and its transformation, meaning its exchanges between bodies. And also, it involves the laws governing the conversion of energy. It's also an experimental science based on the first and second laws. And these laws we are able to observe or generalize from our experience. In the mathematical sense, there's no proof, but the validity of thermodynamics lies in the absence of a contrary experience. So we cannot disprove these laws. That's why even if there's no proof in the mathematical sense, since we cannot disprove it, we deem it to be true or make it as the thermodynamic laws. The term actually is based on two words, which is therme and dynamis. These are Greek words. Therme stands for heat, and dynamis is for strength or power. So it's the production of power from heat, basically. Now, the foundational principles of thermodynamics are broad generalizations rooted in everyday experiences that have been formalized and encoded into the laws of thermodynamics. So, as I have mentioned, these are based from observations, generalized observations that have been formalized into laws. Uh, we now define the three laws. Actually, there are four, but in this slides, we will only define the three laws. The first is the zeroth law of thermodynamics, and it says that bodies in contact with each other will exchange heat until they come in thermal equilibrium. And This gives rise to the definition of temperature. The measurement of the temperature is independent of the type of thermometer, based on the zeroth law of thermodynamics. The first law, so by the way, why is it called the zeroth law? Why is it not called the first law? Well, it's because they already established the first law before they established the zeroth law. So they realized that, hey, this is more basic actually than the first law. Let's call it the zeroth law. That's the reason. So for the first law of thermodynamics, it's the principle of energy conservation. And it says that it's impossible to construct a perpetual motion. Well, that's a derivation from the first law. It's impossible to construct a perpetual motion device, um, or a device that continuously produces work without the input of heat or fuel. So it's always heat is always, or energy is converted from one form to another, and it's impossible to construct a, a device that would not need any heat or fuel. The second law, the second law of thermodynamics is involves entropy. So it's the impossibility of reversing any natural or spontaneous process in its entirety. So it's impossible to reverse any event or any spontaneous process, so that we would bring it back to its original state. For example, if you leave a hot coffee in a cold room, it will um, go cold or turn cold, and it's impossible to spontaneously heat up again. Another example is for when you have like in a room where you're working, eventually you'll find that the things are becomes disarranged or becomes not in order anymore. It becomes chaotic, and the room becomes chaotic, and it will not spontaneously fix itself or go back to its original state. Why do we study thermodynamics? Well, the concepts of thermodynamics are universally valid, and just like what I have mentioned, uh, during the Industrial Revolution, it has to do with more bang for your buck, or for these people, they want to extract more output for whatever input that they're getting, because it's related to economics. Say, for example, before, when they used coal as a fuel, or of course they want to um, extract more energy from the fuel, because it would mean that they're using the the fuel efficiently, and therefore it can save money. So it's all about economics. So as a chemical engineer, we need to know the properties of the material we are dealing with in order to make the most efficient use of them. So we have to, for as an example, for the fuel that we're using, so we need to know its properties, or for the reactants that we are using, we need to know their properties so that we can use them more efficiently. And at the same time, we need to recognize the limitation of the changes in the process and how to overcome it. Say, we need to know the limitations in the extent of reaction. Say, we have a reaction that produces a certain product, but there's a limitation. So at this temperature, it's just limited to say 80% conversion, but what will happen if we increase the temperature? Will it increase the rate of conversion? So those are the things that we need to know because again, it all boils down to economics, to money. So we want to make the most out of our money, more bang for the buck. And for this course, we need to define the scope of thermodynamics. I believe that this course is very much related to your subject in chemistry, physical chemistry, but here in thermodynamics, our perspective is different. So we approach this, we tackle thermodynamics in the view or in the perspective of a chemical engineer. So it would be a different approach. There are some similarities. The concepts are the same. They're universally true. You will notice that you can still like use the ideal gas law, use the other fundamental property relations. It's the same, but our approach um, will always be based on the chemical engineering perspective. Now, as for the scope, this course or thermodynamics will not consider the or we do not establish the rates of chemical or physical processes. That is for another subject, I believe, Che 145. And also, we do not or cannot reveal the molecular mechanisms of physical and chemical process. It's another branch of thermodynamics. Um, or another branch of science. And we also have molecular behavior can be useful in the, although, yeah, we do not go to the level of the molecular level, but we it's helpful, okay, for us in describing or calculating thermodynamic properties. And that gives rise to two possible points of view. We have the macroscopic and microscopic. For macroscopic, it relates quantities such as density, temperature, and pressure. Um, but we do not require any assumption regarding the molecular structure of the matter. And this is the classical thermodynamics. So we only deal with the macroscopic um, properties, which are density, temperature, and pressure, for example. And therefore, this classical thermodynamics, which is our course, deals with the macroscopic systems and their behavior in terms of energy and entropy. And here, we will apply the laws of thermodynamics, so the first and second law mainly, um, and also the concept of equilibrium. Okay, so it will revolve around those concepts. And we also will relate quantities such as composition, density, temperature, and pressure. So these are the quantities that we'll be working with, but it will not reveal. Okay, so this is the um, limitation of the classical thermodynamics. We will uh, not reveal any microscopic or molecular mechanisms like mechanisms of physical, chemical, or biological processes. On the other hand, like I said, another branch of thermodynamics, we call it statistical thermodynamics, but it's not the scope of this course, Che 142, also known as statistical mechanics. And for this branch, it explores the microscopic behavior. And this is done by considering the statistical distribution of particles. So for statistical thermodynamics, it's a theoretical framework for understanding the thermodynamic properties, but this time at the molecular level. And it depends on the existence and behavior of the molecules. But of course, in the macroscopic scale, we are not able to observe that directly. It's not related to our perception senses and perception, and therefore we cannot routinely measure those quantities. Unlike, say, temperature, pressure, we can measure that, but for microscopic behavior, we do not have a way to directly measure that. But it offers an insight into material behavior and contributes to the evaluation of thermodynamic properties. So it's helpful to touch a bit. Okay, so it's not the scope of our course, but we'll be touching a bit, like if we need to describe the behavior, sometimes it involves describing the molecular properties. So we have those cases here. And it bridges the gap, length and time scale between the microscopic and macroscopic perspective. So that's statistical thermodynamics. What are the applications of thermodynamics? Like I have mentioned before, the cooling of a hot cup of coffee when you leave it in a cold room. When we exercise, that's also thermodynamics. The air conditioning in our rooms, that's also an application of thermodynamics. Refrigeration of our food, industrial processes, and energy production. So these are all applications of thermodynamics and more. Okay. So the applications of the laws would not just in this course or in chemical engineering, but also in various scientific and engineering fields, would involve the calculations of heat, work, and equilibrium conditions. So this is the heart of our calculations of heat, work, and equilibrium. So it would be helpful for practical applications, not just helpful, it requires detailed knowledge of material properties. So that's why we will make use of property tables um, and diagrams. So it's very important for us to refer those to be able to calculate the heat, work, and equilibrium conditions. Some examples of questions that can be answered by the laws of thermodynamics, combined with the property tables or property information. In the realm of energy release and heat calculations, so these are two examples. How much energy is released when burning 1 liter of ethanol? Okay. Um, so that's important if we need to know the energy from fuel. What is the maximum flame temperature that can be achieved when ethanol is burned in air? I think this is something that you also learned in your CHET 32. For efficiency and work, we want to know the maximum fraction of heat released during ethanol combustion that can be converted to electrical energy or mechanical work. Because it's not going to be 100%. We cannot 100% convert heat to electrical or mechanical work. There's always some heat loss. And we can calculate for that maximum efficiency, or yeah, the maximum fraction of heat. How does energy how does the efficiency of a thermodynamic cycle change with different working fluids? So that's a topic that on power cycles. What if we use a different material or a different fluid? In the realm of combustion and chemical reactions, how do the maximum flame temperature and efficiency change if ethanol is burned with pure oxygen instead of air? Again, this is some calculations that you will also learn or have learned in your Chet 32. That's also thermodynamics. What is the maximum amount of electrical energy that can be produced when ethanol reacts with oxygen in a fuel cell? Um, so this is a chemical reaction, fuel cell, right? Uh, but we also want to know the maximum amount of, the maximum amount of electrical energy because it's not going to be 100%. For phase equilibrium and composition, say we have a distillation system. So in the distillation of ethanol and water, how are the vapor and liquid compositions related at equilibrium? So that's also thermodynamics, and that's Che 152, if um if I remember correctly. So as you can see that it's thermodynamics, this subject is not just limited to this course, but it's fundamental to the other chemical engineering courses. That's why you have to take this seriously because it does not end here. You will still use it in your other chem and courses up until your plant design and equipment design. When water and ethylene react at high pressure and temperature to produce ethanol, what are the compositions of the resulting phases? So that's another application of thermodynamics under phase equilibrium. Gas laws and material properties. Some example questions or applications of thermodynamics: how much ethylene is contained in high pressure gas cylinder given the specific temperature, pressure, and volume. So, and this is important because if we're going to design an equipment, even a plant, we need to know the sizes and we need to know this information to make our design. What is the relationship between pressure, volume, temperature for a non-ideal gas in a given process? Non-ideal gas, well, in reality, in the industry, we're always going to deal with um, non-ideal behavior. Okay. Uh, yeah, there are situations where we can assume ideal gas. Say we have low pressure and high temperature, but more or less, we are going to face non-ideal behavior, and that's still a scope or an application of thermodynamics. Mixing and solution, that's also a scope. What volume of solution results from mixing 1 liter of ethanol and water, considering the total volume will not exactly 2 liters. So as you can see, if we have 1 liter of ethanol and 1 liter of water, if we mix that, would um that mean we would have 2 liters of a mixture? Is there such a thing as law conservation of volume? There's no such thing because the resulting volume will not be 2 liters, it will be different. And therefore, it's up to us and applying thermodynamics or thermodynamic skills to calculate what will be the resulting solution. When ethanol is added to a two-phase system containing toluene and water, how much ethanol will partition into each phase? Okay, so that's also, this is already for Che 143. Okay. Freezing and phase transition. If the mixture of ethanol water is partially frozen, what are the compositions of the remaining liquid and solid phases? At what temperature and pressure does a substance undergo a phase transition from liquid to gas, given its pressure PVT relationship? So for freezing and phase transition, these are some example applications. And thermodynamic properties and predictions. How does internal energy or enthalpy of a substance change with temperature and pressure? What are changes associated with the reversible expansion of ideal gas? And here it's mentioned that prediction. So actually that's what we're going to do. We're going to predict um, the resulting quantities or properties of the system. So this is more like a modeling of the system. We're going to model the system using thermodynamic laws. For reaction equilibrium and thermodynamic data, so these are example questions. What is the equilibrium constant? So I'm pretty sure that you already encountered equilibrium constant for a chemical reaction in your chemistry classes, and also Gibbs free energy. And that is a given. You should already have a background on that, and we will deal with that again here. But in the perspective of a chemical engineer, how do changes in pressure and temperature affect equilibrium position of reaction? And we also have thermodynamic cycles and performance. So this is for the Carnot engine. What is the maximum efficiency of Carnot engine operating between two specific temperatures? But for the refrigeration and liquefaction, we have coefficient of performance as a measure of the efficiency. So what is the COP of a refrigeration cycle depending on the refrigerant? All right, so those are the many applications, uh, example of applications of thermodynamics. And uh, what's the relevance? You can see that it's there are many applications. It covers a lot of chemical engineering courses, not just limited to this one. And this shows the importance of learning this course, not just in preparation for the following chemical engineering courses, but and not just for the board exam, but also to prepare you when you go to the industry, because these are actually questions that they ask in the industry, and you will learn how to answer these questions in this course. So I hope that everyone is excited uh, to learn or to go through CHE 143 Chemical Engineering Thermodynamics 1.